Have you ever wondered why some people fall for you so deeply, so irrationally, as if there were an invisible force drawing them in? It might seem like it's your charm, your humor, or the way your eyes light up when you talk. But what if the real reason runs far deeper, beneath the surface of personality, beyond appearances or social chemistry? Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, believed that love isn't an accident. It's not just coincidence or chemistry. According to Jung, people fall in love for two profound reasons, and neither has much to do with your looks or accomplishments. People are drawn to you because of what you symbolize in their unconscious minds. You represent either something they've been missing or something they've forgotten lives inside them. Love, then, isn't about seeing the real you. It's about seeing a reflection of their own inner world, often one they've never dared to look at directly. And that changes everything. Love isn't random. It's psychological resonance. We like to believe that love is spontaneous, that magical spark between two souls. But Jung argued that what feels spontaneous is actually the result of deep psychological mechanisms. The psyche has a blueprint, a silent architecture. And this blueprint attracts us to very specific people who awaken something unconscious inside us. What we call love at first sight may be the moment someone's presence activates an inner need we didn't even know we had. Take this example. Imagine someone who has spent most of their life playing it safe, never speaking up, always prioritizing others. Suddenly, they meet someone bold, unfiltered, wildly expressive. Instantly, they're hooked. Why? Because that confident person represents a lost part of themselves, a trait that was buried under layers of childhood conditioning, fear, or shame. The attraction is real, but it's not about the other person. It's about the self reaching out for something it's been missing. You probably experienced this from the other side, too, when someone fell for you hard, but you could sense their love wasn't about who you are, but what you represented to them. That's not coincidence. That's projection. Projection, the secret force behind attraction. According to Jung, we all carry hidden images in our unconscious. These are fragments of our past selves, wounded memories, or ideal traits we long to develop. But we rarely access them directly. So what happens? We project. We unconsciously assign these hidden traits onto people who resemble them in some way, maybe not physically, but emotionally or energetically. And then we fall in love, not with the person, but with the symbol they've become. When someone falls for you because you embody something they've repressed or forgotten, their attraction can feel overwhelming. They'll say things like, "It's like I've known you forever," or "You make me feel alive again." It's intense, but it's often not about you. It's about their inner longing, finding a vessel. The first reason people fall in love with you: you represent something they lack. This is the first layer of Jung's insight. We're attracted to people who hold qualities we don't currently possess but deeply desire. The overthinker falls for the spontaneous soul. The emotionally guarded one falls for someone deeply empathetic. The overly structured one falls for chaos and mystery. It's not opposites attract. It's missing pieces recognize each other. But there's a risk here. If they don't recognize that what they admire in you is something they can develop in themselves, they'll become dependent on you. You'll become a crutch. And when you disappoint them, as all humans eventually do, they may withdraw, lash out, or leave. Because they weren't in love with you. They were in love with the illusion of what you made them feel. Love built on projection can't last unless we wake up, unless we recognize what's being projected and choose to see each other clearly without fantasy or fear. Jung's quote says it all. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. So when someone falls in love with you, deeply, irrationally, pause and ask, what do I represent to them? Is this really about me, or something they're trying to find in themselves? And when you feel that deep pull toward someone else, be brave enough to ask the same. Because awareness is the beginning of transformation. And the most authentic love starts where the illusion ends. In Jungian psychology, there's a moment of realization more disorienting than heartbreak itself. The moment you realize someone didn't actually fall in love with you. They fell in love with what you activated inside them. And what you activated might not even be about this lifetime. This brings us to the second, deeper reason people fall in love with you. You awaken an ancient archetype that lives within their unconscious. Not a personality type, not a preference, but a psychic figure that predates logic, culture, or even language. Jung called them the Anima and Animus. What is the Anima and Animus? Jung believed every man carries within him an inner image of the feminine, his Anima, and every woman carries an inner image of the masculine, her Animus. These aren't created through dating apps, rom-coms, or personal taste. They are formed through early childhood experiences, especially with our opposite gender parent, and are shaped by the collective myths, stories, and energies of our culture. The boy with a distant mother may carry a cold, elusive Anima within. The girl with a dominant father may develop a harsh, critical Animus. A boy raised by a nurturing but emotionally repressed woman may internalize an Anima that is soft but silent. A girl raised by an absent father may long for an Animus that appears heroic but never stays. These unconscious templates become the blueprints of who we fall for and how. So when someone meets you and you happen to align with their inner image, either in energy, voice, essence, or mystery, it feels like a homecoming, a mystical reunion. They say, I don't know why, but I feel like I've known you forever. It feels sacred, meant to be, almost divine. But here's the truth. They're not seeing you. They're seeing their Anima or Animus projected onto your body, your presence, your voice. You become a screen for their soul's movie. This kind of projection is powerful. It doesn't feel like fantasy. It feels like fate. But it isn't. In Jung's words, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. Yes, both may change, but that transformation depends on awareness. If someone is unaware of their Anima, Animus projection, they will cling to the illusion. When you match the image, you're perfect. When you contradict it, you're flawed. When you show real emotions, needs, shadows, you become too much, not enough, or not who I thought you were. This is why many passionate relationships crash after the honeymoon stage. It's not because the love wasn't real. It's because the projection couldn't survive reality. The second reason people fall in love with you, you awaken their inner myth. Let's break it down. Imagine a man who has repressed his emotional life. His Anima is wild, poetic, intuitive, perhaps even chaotic. Then he meets a woman who embodies that energy. She laughs freely, speaks emotionally, wears her heart on her sleeve. He is mesmerized. But soon he becomes overwhelmed. She's too emotional. He can't handle it. The projection begins to collapse because he wasn't loving her. He was loving the part of himself he never developed. Now imagine a woman raised around emotionally absent men. Her Animus is cool, rational, maybe even controlling. She meets a man who is silent, intense, mysterious. He doesn't open up. She feels drawn to him, magnetized. Why? Because he aligns with the inner male image she's been carrying for years. But over time, his emotional unavailability causes pain. Still, she stays, because the archetype feels familiar, even if the relationship is toxic. The danger of falling in love with a symbol. When someone loves you as a symbol, not as a person, they set you up to fail, because no human being can fulfill an archetype forever. You'll say something too real. You'll cry. You'll have a bad day. You'll ask for space, and suddenly the divine light dims. They pull away, or they try to fix you, control you, silence you. Why? Because the fantasy is breaking. You've been on both sides of this. You've been the projection. You've also made the projection. Think about someone you fell for instantly, maybe without even knowing why. They just felt right. You filled in their story before they even spoke. That's not love. That's the unconscious using another person as a mirror. Jung believed this isn't wrong. It's part of growth. But if you don't recognize it, you'll stay stuck in a loop, loving shadows, fearing light. So what's the way out? Awareness. Once you know the Anima or Animus exists, you can start asking better questions when love hits you like lightning. Who does this person remind me of? What part of me feels woken up around them? What qualities am I craving through them instead of cultivating in me? And when someone falls hard for you, ask, what unmet longing might I be symbolizing? Am I being loved or used as a reflection? This isn't about guilt or shame. It's about freeing yourself and them from illusion. So what happens when the illusion breaks? What happens when someone finally sees you, not the fantasy? Or when you realize that the person you loved wasn't really them, but a reflection of your inner longing? This is where most relationships collapse. But it's also where the real relationship could begin. Carl Jung never said projection was wrong. He said it was unavoidable. But it's what you do after the projection collapses that defines your path. Because here's the truth. Every love begins with illusion, but only conscious love can survive the truth. The collapse of the ideal. In the early stages of love, everything feels magical. The other person seems to get you. The chemistry is off the charts. The connection feels predestined. But over time, life enters the picture. She's not always gentle. He's not always strong. They disagree with you. They disappoint you. They become human. And if your love was built on a projection, on what they represented, not who they are, this is the moment of disillusionment. For many, this is the end, because they don't know how to love without the story, from collapse to consciousness. But for others, those brave enough to stay present, this becomes the beginning of something deeper. Here's what Jung believed. The collapse of the fantasy is necessary. It's the cracking of the mirror. And behind that broken reflection is your real self. The people who anger you most, they expose the parts of you that you've disowned. The people who disappoint you most, they challenge your attachments to perfection. The people you can't let go of, even after they're gone, they've touched a part of your soul that was asleep. So instead of asking, why did they change? Ask, what were they mirroring that I still need to meet in myself? This is the sacred shift Jung calls individuation, the process of becoming whole, not by finding the perfect partner, but by integrating the pieces you've projected onto others. How the shadow joins the story. Here's where it gets even deeper. When the idealized version fades, the shadow emerges. You begin to see the parts of the other person that don't fit your fantasy, their jealousy, their insecurity, their trauma, their wounds, and they begin to see yours. This is the most fragile moment in any relationship. It's when many run. But it's also when healing becomes possible. Because if you can stay, if you can face the shadow instead of fleeing it, you can love from awareness, not projection. Real love begins with seeing clearly. Jung once said, the meeting of two personalities is like the contact of two chemical substances. If there is any reaction, both are transformed. But most people never stay long enough for the transformation. They want the high, the magic, the idea, not the mess, not the mirror, not the work. But if you can move past the illusion, if you can see the actual person standing in front of you and still choose them, that's the beginning of something sacred. This is love that isn't born from need or longing or lack. It's born from presence. You're not here to complete someone. You're here to wake them up. When someone falls in love with you, they're often falling in love with what they wish they could be. Your confidence, your calm, your freedom, your fire. But if they don't awaken those qualities in themselves, the love will turn to resentment. Because no one can carry another's unlived life forever. And you? You've probably done the same. You saw someone and felt whole. But it wasn't them who completed you. It was the you they reminded you to become. This is the real work. To reclaim what you've given away. To integrate what you've projected. To love others without losing yourself. 3 signs. You're moving from projection to real love. You stop expecting them to fix your feelings. You begin owning your anxiety, your sadness, your needs. Instead of expecting them to make you feel whole, you start to see their flaws. And it deepens the love, not because you're blind, but because you understand they, too, are walking their own path, carrying their own shadows. You begin to change, not because they asked, but because love inspired it. You want to grow, not to keep them, but because the mirror they held up revealed the parts of you that were ready to evolve from fantasy to freedom. This is the transformation Jung wanted us to make, from loving an image to loving a soul, from chasing perfection to choosing presence, from addiction to euphoria to devotion in reality. And the beautiful paradox? The more you let go of illusion, the deeper the connection becomes. Because you're not loving their potential. You're loving the actual human being. And in doing that, you love yourself more honestly, too. So what happens after the fantasy shatters? Do you leave? Do you chase a new high, another mirror, another symbol of your missing piece? Or do you stay, not in blind loyalty, not out of guilt, but because you've realized something most people never do? The real purpose of love isn't to complete you, it's to wake you up. This is the gift, the mirror that doesn't lie. Carl Jung taught that projection isn't just a psychological error, it's a spiritual opportunity. When you project your anima or animus, your inner opposite, onto someone, it reveals where your psyche wants to grow. But most people miss the signal. They either cling to the fantasy and deny reality, or reject the person and avoid the lesson. But projection isn't the problem. Unconscious projection is. The goal is not to stop projecting. The goal is to recognize the projection as it happens and use it as a path to individuation, to becoming whole. So when someone triggers you, when you feel a strong pull, good or bad, ask, what part of me are they showing me? Are they showing you the confidence you repress, the vulnerability you hide, the freedom you secretly crave, the truth you're scared to face? Once you see it, you can integrate it. You reclaim the energy you gave away, and in doing so, you free the other person from your fantasy. Now you can meet them as they really are, and that is the start of conscious love. Two souls, not two halves. Mainstream culture tells us we're looking for our other half, but Jung disagreed. He believed that love is not about merging into one. It's about two whole individuals choosing to walk together. That only happens after individuation begins. You're not looking for someone to save you. You're not trying to heal your parent through your partner. You're not addicted to the feeling of being seen. You've learned to see yourself. When you come from this place, love transforms. It becomes less of a firework and more of a flame. Steady, fierce, warm, honest. You stop falling in love with stories. You start building love with presence. How to love without losing yourself. So how do you practice this? Here are 5 conscious steps Jung's work inspires, adapted for real life. Catch the projection early. When you feel intense attraction or idealization, pause. Ask, what am I seeing in this person that I feel I lack? Am I loving them or what they awaken in me? Naming the projection is the first act of power. Own your inner opposite. Instead of relying on them to carry the energy, develop it in yourself. If they're confident and you're not, practice boldness. If they're deeply nurturing and you've been emotionally closed, reconnect to your feeling world. Jung called this integrating the anima, animus. It's the key to becoming psychologically whole. Don't expect a soulmate. Expect a mirror. If you expect perfection, you will always be disappointed. If you expect growth, you will always find value, even in pain. Everyone is your teacher, especially the ones who stir deep emotion. Talk about the shadow. Early, most people wait until the 3rd year of a relationship to reveal their fears, wounds, and truths. Why not sooner? Practice saying, here's what I'm afraid of. Here's how I sabotage connection. Here's what I projected onto you and what I'm learning. Vulnerability isn't weakness. It's the invitation to real intimacy. Hold space for change. People grow. People change. Sometimes together, sometimes apart. But if you can love someone through their unfolding, not just their idealized version, you'll experience the kind of bond that transcends ego. You're not too much. You're a catalyst. If you've ever been told, you're too intense, you make me think too much, you're overwhelming, maybe it's not because you're too much. Maybe it's because you reflect something people weren't ready to see. That's not a flaw. That's your gift. Some will reject it. Some will run from it. But others, those on the same path of awakening, will stay. And in your presence, they will grow, just like you are growing now. Jung's final gift, transforming love into awareness. Carl Jung's teachings weren't about romanticizing the unconscious. They were about facing it. because love without self-awareness becomes addiction. But love with self-awareness becomes alchemy. You no longer chase connection, you create it. You no longer demand perfection, you honor truth. You no longer seek healing from others, you bring healing through your presence. This is love that matures, love that evolves, love that liberates. Let's close with this. You will still fall for illusions. You will still project. You will still be triggered. But now you'll know what's happening. You'll pause. You'll reflect. You'll ask, what is this teaching me? And in that pause, your inner world begins to shift. You're no longer lost in the drama. You're watching, learning, growing. And that's the beginning of freedom. If you've ever felt like your love life was a loop, repeating patterns, running in circles, know this. You weren't broken. You were asleep. But now you're awakening. So share in the comments. What projection are you releasing? What part of yourself are you ready to reclaim? What has love shown you about you? Let's start a real conversation, not about fantasy, not about perfect partners, but about wholeness, because that's what Jung wanted for us, and maybe what you've wanted all along.